They're preparing for the first pretrial conference. It's set for Friday. The hearing will consider how classified information will be handled in the courtroom. The latest unredacted affidavit in the case offers more details of how exactly those boxes of documents were moved around on Trump's Mar-a-Lago compound. Joining me now, Eric Tucker, Associated Press, FBI and Justice Department reporter, and Lisa Rubin, MSNBC legal analyst. Welcome to you both. Eric, want to first make out the point here that Trump does not have to attend this on Friday, right? But give me your expectation for Friday's hearing.
I think, Alex, it's fairly significant because this is the first time we're going to hear a discussion about the parameters of how this case is going to move forward in terms of the handling of classified information. And that's significant because, of course, classified information is at the root of this prosecution. So I anticipate there's going to be some discussion on both sides in front of the judge about how that's going to play out.
Okay, so Lisa, this search warrant affidavit, it suggests that classified information is going to come up. Much of it remains heavily redacted, as you know, but it clearly lays out the law for storage of secret and top secret information. It outlines the movement of boxes in and out of a storage room. So who's going to be allowed to see classified information during the trial? What are the rules that the prosecutors are likely going to ask for?
Well, Alex, one of the ground rules is, of course, that the jury can see classified information regardless of whether they have clearances or not. And the same is true for the defendants themselves. The other issue, however, though, is that defense counsel needs security clearances. And Judge Cannon has ordered the lawyers for Donald Trump and Walt Nauta to submit essentially all of their paperwork and follow all of the steps that the Department of Justice requires by Thursday so that they can have this hearing on Friday. One of the other big developments this week is going to be the response that's due tomorrow by lawyers from Trump and Nauta as to when this trial should even take place. The Department of Justice has pushed back against the August 14th trial date that Judge Cannon set, saying they need until December because of the complexities given the classified information in the case. It'll be interesting to see whether Trump and Nauta agree with that, believe the case should be tried sooner, or what more people think is likely, believe it should be pushed after primary season and perhaps even later. So when Donald Trump says, you know, the Department of Justice is weaponized against me, it'll be interesting to see whether he wants to allow that trial to take place in a timely way so that he can get it behind him.
Yeah, by the way, in a poll of Americans this week, it was clearly stated they want this taken care of before the election, if not before the primaries. That said, there's a new NBC analysis today, and it shows dozens of witnesses have already testified before a January 6th focused grand jury. They've indicated they are focused on the fake electors scheme, and a total of 84 fake electors across 7 swing states signed documents falsely declaring Trump the winner, Eric. I know you've been writing about Rudy Giuliani's talks with Jack Smith's team. So what's your sense of where the investigation is now?
It is really much broader than the Mar-a-Lago investigation, which from the beginning was centered on Donald Trump and Walt Nauta. So when they were indicted, there have been sort of an ominous months of ominous foreboding that led people to understand that that could be an outcome. The January 6th investigation is really so wide-ranging that it's sort of challenging to kind of get a real sense as to what the underlying theory is. Clearly, fake electors are a big part of it. Clearly, fundraising off the so-called quote-unquote big lie is another part of it. And as you mentioned, Rudy Giuliani voluntarily appeared before Jack Smith's team, which is different than, of course, being subpoenaed before a grand jury. And that's a telling development because it underscores the extent to which the legal advice that was being given to Donald Trump about the avenues of trying to overturn the election or challenge the results is a central focal point of the investigation.
Yeah, and to that end, Lisa, I want to pick up on it because a D.C. disciplinary panel is recommending Giuliani be permanently disbarred. How do you see the fake electors investigation playing out with potentially 84 fake electors, again, by NBC's count?
I think the fake electors, to Eric's point, I agree. The fake electors prong of the investigation is just that. It's a prong. But it all goes back to a variety of different mechanisms by which Donald Trump and his allies tried to overturn the results of the 2020 election and or capitalize or defraud the American public based on their theory of fraud. So I believe the fake elector scheme will be a part of charges if the Department of Justice, in fact, brings charges, but I don't think it will be the totality here. And with respect to Rudy, one of the things I find so interesting, both about the fact that Rudy went in and the list that NBC News put out this morning of folks who have given grand jury testimony, is who's not on it and who Rudy had contact with, because that's a Venn diagram with significant overlap. The folks who aren't on it are people including Mark Meadows, Sidney Powell, Patrick Byrne, Mike Flynn, folks who were giving Trump advice to continue perpetrating and investigating the big lie, and who themselves might be in the crosshairs of this criminal investigation, Alex.
Absolutely stunning. Lisa Rubin, I'll see you again, no doubt. Eric, it's good to have you on the show, too, so come see me again. Thank you.